Hey guys, this is your friendly neighbor Scorpion, and welcome back for this part 4 of Vintage Game Night. And this time we're gonna have a look at the sequel to the game we looked at last time. You got it, Rebel Assault 2 from LucasArts. The game was released in 1995, so it's 22 years old. And I must admit, from booting up the game, the nostalgia was really running high in my veins. I first played this game as a young teen alongside my brother, and we had so many good moments with this game, so I was really looking forward to going back and checking this one out, seeing if it still holds up today. So let's get started and see if it does. First up is graphics. And this is by far the biggest improvement that has been made in the 2 years since the last one came out. The resolution has gone up by quite a bit, which really helps on all of the cutscenes in the game, because again, it's movie clips that are being rendered into the game, and it just helps when they're a lot more smooth. This is also very noticeable in the in-game graphics, because everything just seems much more detailed in the cockpit. This gladly also means that you can actually see where the hell you're flying in this game. Except one part in the Millennium Falcon inside a cave, where it gets a bit muddy. Let's move on to sound and music. And to be honest, this was actually pretty good in the last one as well. Maybe with an exception of some of the voice acting, but that has gladly been fixed in this one, because the voice acting is really good, and especially Darth Vader is actually done pretty good, considering it's not James Earl Jones. In-game sound has been cleaned up a bit as well, and I really feel like they nailed it in this one. Ranging from blaster bolts from your X-Wing to the sound that R2-D2 makes when you get an extra life is just very well done. And that leads us into gameplay. And again, in this game you have 15 chapters with a couple of sections in each chapter, but the good thing about this one is that for each chapter you get a code, so you can start off at that point next time. The 15 chapters consists of these gameplay mechanics: on-rail shooter, some very simple cover shooter sequences, which, considering the age of the game, is actually working quite well. Some fly and dodge sequences, and this one with the Millennium Falcon really takes the cake for most frustrating level in the game. Of course, we have a mix of fly dodge and shooting, and this is really the weakest parts of the game, and it probably should be the strongest because of the epic feel, but the controls is just not up to snuff, really. Oh, and we have a little speeder bike level. The variety in the gameplay is actually pretty good, but it also reveals one of the weakest points of the game, and that is the controls. Because in order to get the best experience out of the game, I felt like I had to switch between my mouse and a controller. The reason for that being, the on-rail shooter sequences is freaking amazing on a mouse. It's just the most accurate by far. The cover and shoot sequences also works a lot better on a mouse. Now if we move on to the fly and dodge sequences, then it gets kind of unplayable on a mouse, at least for me. I might just be shit, I don't know, but in order to get this to work properly I had to use my controller, which makes it a little better, but it's still way harder than I think it should be. And the worst two offenders for me at least was the Millennium Falcon level and the TIE Fighter level. And unless you're playing on a very low difficulty with a lot of health, then you're gonna see this a lot. But even though I died a hell of a lot on the Millennium Falcon level, I must say I still enjoyed it. It was the one I remembered mostly from back when I played it the first time. Time for a couple of pro tips for this game. Whether you're playing on the mouse or the controller, you will do yourself a big favor by turning down the sensitivity way down, because that will make it a lot easier to control. But start by turning it down, and then you can gradually nudge it up a bit. And on the cover and shoot sequences, don't go for headshots, because they won't register anyway, so just go for the body shot. Time for a bit about the story. And again, this time we follow Rookie 1 on his adventures with the Rebel Alliance. This is also one of the points where this sequel improves a lot on the original, because the whole story is flushed out a lot more. You feel a lot more immersed in the characters, because they have more screen time, and throughout the game you will get to encounter stuff from the original trilogy, such as the Millennium Falcon and the speeder bike sequence. And to be honest, I don't really want to spoil the story, because I think you should experience it on your own. Which is also why I'm not using too much gameplay from later on in the game. It's not a long game though, and I would say I roughly spent around 4 hours, maybe a bit over that, but I died a shit ton. because of the controls. If you're a flying ace or you have it on lower difficulty, you might be able to do it in as little as maybe 2.5 hours. To sum up, I really enjoyed this game, and I had a strong nostalgic feeling throughout the game, and I must say even the parts that didn't really work as well, and again the controls isn't really what I would like it to be, the good parts really overshine everything else. And that is really due to the massive improvements both to the graphics and the overall story of the game from the first one. And this of course leaves us with a final verdict of 4 out of 5 Battle Ready X-Wings. So yeah, basically, if you can find this one cheap, then you should definitely buy it and get a really great Star Wars experience just for yourself. The next game we'll be looking at to complete this trilogy of Star Wars games is Star Wars Dark Forces. And that wraps up this episode. If you enjoyed the video, then don't forget to leave a like, comment, and maybe even subscribe for more content in the future.
Looks like the Alliance owes you a debt of gratitude. Without the advantage of their Phantom fleet, the Empire will have to face us on equal